Winter clothing advice is everywhere. Wear thicker clothes. Add more layers. Buy a warmer jacket. Avoid certain fabrics. Most of these tips sound logical, and that's exactly why they're so widely repeated. The problem is that logic doesn't always match reality. Many people follow these rules carefully and still feel cold. They own winter jackets, sweaters, scarves, sometimes even high-quality ones. Yet staying warm remains a constant struggle. At that point, it's easy to assume the problem is the weather, the fabric, or not buying the right thing. In reality, a lot of common winter clothing advice is based on oversimplified ideas about how warmth works. These ideas aren't completely wrong, but they're incomplete. And when you rely on them without understanding what's actually happening to heat, air, and moisture, they quietly stop working. In this video, we'll look at some of the most common winter clothing myths, not to criticize them, but to explain why they often fail in real cold. Once you understand where these ideas break down, it becomes much easier to stay warm using the clothes you already have, without chasing the next perfect winter solution. Myth number 1. Thicker clothes are always warmer. This is one of the most common beliefs about winter clothing. If something feels thick, heavy, and bulky, it must be warm. And at first glance, that makes sense. More material looks like more protection from the cold. But thickness alone doesn't create warmth. What actually keeps you warm is still air trapped close to your body. Thick clothing only works when it can hold that air in place. If the air inside the layers is constantly moving, warmth disappears quickly, no matter how bulky the outfit looks. Many thick clothes allow airflow through the fabric, seams, or loose openings. Others become compressed as soon as you move, sit down, or carry a bag. When insulation is flattened, the air pockets disappear, and so does much of the warmth. The clothing still feels heavy, but it no longer insulates effectively. Thickness can also create a false sense of security. People rely on one very thick item and ignore wind protection, moisture buildup, or poor fit. As a result, they feel warm for a short time and then slowly get colder, especially outdoors. This is why a thinner outfit that traps air and blocks wind can feel much warmer than a single thick layer. Thickness helps only when it supports the real goal, keeping warm air still and close to your body. Without that, bulk alone doesn't solve the problem. Myth number 2. Just add more layers. When people feel cold, the most common advice is simple. Add another layer. Put on one more sweater, another hoodie, thicker socks. It sounds practical, and sometimes it helps, but very often it makes things worse. Layering only works when layers are used correctly. Adding layers without thinking about their role can compress insulation, reduce air pockets, and trap moisture. Instead of creating warmth, the outfit becomes heavy, tight, and uncomfortable. Too many layers restrict movement. Restricted movement leads to sweating, and once moisture builds up inside your clothing, heat loss accelerates. You may feel warm for a few minutes and then suddenly cold, especially when you stop moving. Another issue is uneven insulation. Extra layers bunch up in some areas and stretch thin in others. Warmth becomes inconsistent, and your body keeps adjusting instead of staying comfortable. This is why just add more layers isn't a reliable solution in real cold. Without controlling airflow, moisture, and fit, extra layers don't fix the underlying problem. They only add bulk. Effective layering isn't about quantity, it's about balance and function. Myth number 3. A warm jacket solves everything. Many people treat the winter jacket as the most important piece of clothing. If the jacket is warm enough, everything underneath shouldn't matter. This belief makes sense. The jacket is the outermost layer, the biggest, and usually the most expensive. But a jacket can only work as well as the system underneath it. Even a very warm jacket can fail if moisture builds up inside, wind enters through gaps, or inner layers don't manage heat properly. The jacket ends up trying to compensate for problems it wasn't designed to solve. A common situation looks like this. The jacket feels warm when you first put it on, but after some movement you start to sweat. That moisture stays inside, cools down, and suddenly you feel cold, even though the jacket itself hasn't changed. At that point, adding insulation or choosing a warmer jacket doesn't fix the real issue. Another problem is over-reliance on insulation. Jackets are often chosen for how thick or padded they look, while details like fit, wind protection, and ventilation are ignored. Without controlling airflow and moisture, insulation alone can't maintain warmth for long. A jacket is an important part of staying warm, but it's not a standalone solution. When it's expected to do all the work, it usually disappoints. Warmth comes from how all layers function together, not from one item carrying the entire load. Myth number 4. Cotton is bad in winter. Cotton often gets a bad reputation in winter clothing advice. It's commonly described as a fabric you should avoid at all costs once temperatures drop. And like many myths, this one comes from a real problem, but it's been simplified too much. Cotton absorbs moisture easily and holds onto it. When cotton gets wet from sweat or snow, it dries slowly and pulls heat away from your body. In cold conditions with a lot of movement or moisture, this can absolutely make you feel colder. This is where the warning against cotton comes from. But that doesn't mean cotton is always a bad choice in winter. In dry, cold conditions, cotton can feel comfortable, breathable, and stable. It's soft against the skin, allows airflow, and doesn't create the clammy feeling some synthetic fabrics can cause. Many people wear cotton daily in winter without any issues, especially indoors or in calm weather. The real issue isn't cotton itself. It's where and how it's used. Cotton performs poorly as a moisture-managing base layer during physical activity, but as a mid-layer in dry conditions, or in situations where sweating is minimal, it can work just fine. Labeling cotton as bad oversimplifies the problem. Winter warmth depends more on moisture control, airflow, and layering logic than on banning a single fabric. Used in the right place and conditions, cotton isn't the enemy it's often made out to be. Myth number 5. If you're cold, you need better fabric. When winter clothing doesn't feel warm enough, many people immediately focus on fabric. They assume the material is the problem. Not warm enough, not technical enough, not high quality enough. This belief is reinforced by marketing, which often presents fabric choice as the main solution to cold. In reality, fabric alone rarely fixes the problem. You can wear high-quality materials and still feel cold if heat is escaping through wind, gaps, or trapped moisture. Even the best fabric can't perform properly when it's used in the wrong place or under the wrong conditions. This myth also shifts attention away from how clothes are worn. Fit, layering order, and airflow control often have a much bigger impact on warmth than switching from one fabric to another. A slightly less advanced material used correctly will usually outperform a premium fabric used poorly. Another issue is expectation. People expect a fabric upgrade to deliver instant warmth without changing anything else. When that doesn't happen, they assume they need something even better, starting a cycle of replacement instead of adjustment. Cold weather comfort isn't about finding the perfect fabric. It's about creating the right environment around your body. Once airflow is controlled, moisture is managed, and air stays still, many fabrics work surprisingly well. Without those basics, no material can solve the problem on its own. Myth number 6. Winter warmth is about buying the right things. One of the strongest winter clothing myths is the idea that staying warm depends on buying the right items. A better jacket, better fabric, better layers. When people feel cold, they often assume they're missing something, and that purchasing it will finally solve the problem. This belief is understandable. Marketing reinforces it constantly, suggesting that warmth comes from owning the right gear. But many people discover the same pattern. They buy new winter clothes, feel warmer at first, and then slowly end up cold again. The reason is simple. Warmth isn't created by individual items. It's created by how those items work together. Without proper layering, wind control, moisture management, and fit, even the best clothing struggles to perform. Focusing only on buying also hides smaller, more effective solutions. Adjusting how layers are worn, sealing gaps, managing moisture, or changing the order of clothing often improves warmth more than replacing items. These changes don't feel exciting, but they work. This myth is especially frustrating because it turns a practical problem into a spending problem. People end up with full wardrobes and the same discomfort. Once you stop chasing the right thing and start understanding how warmth works, winter clothing becomes much simpler and far more effective. Warmth isn't about owning more. It's about using what you already have in the right way.